Chapter 21 Morphological Changes and the State of Emptiness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 21, Form Change and Void State. That in the following few days, the role of Might Guy's guidance has been highlighted. First of all, the intensity of exercise is controlled. In the past, Xia Li was not sure about the intensity that his body could withstand. Now he can complete the goal of exercise in a shorter time. Secondly, the amount of exercise is controlled. Even the amount of Xia Li's increase is calculated, which really saves a lot of time. However, Might Guy is of course not there every day. He just observed carefully when he gave guidance at the beginning. Most of the time, Xia Li and Xiao Li were still practicing together. Xia Li was still convinced by Might Guy's understanding of physical skills. After all, he was the man who almost kicked out the finale with pure physical skills. Finally, there was the state of stillness in the sage mode. Since that day, Xia Li has not been able to enter that state again for several days. However, Xia Li was not in a hurry, because he had climbed up once and could clearly feel that he was actually moving in the right direction. Finally, after a few days, Xia Li successfully entered the state of stillness again without breaking through the limit, and this time the duration was much longer than the last time. However, in this state, Xia Li still did not sense the existence of natural energy, and it was still empty. In the following days, the entry threshold of this state could no longer stop Xia Li, and he could enter this state more easily. Although it seemed that it was useless to enter, Xia Li was not disappointed with this. After all, it was just a pre-state of the sage mode, and it was within the estimation that it was useless. What he had to do next was to continue to lower the entry threshold until he could directly enter this state in his perfect state. After all, if it was a battle, where would you have time to exercise, and even to the limit? So even if you successfully entered, how many states do you have to fight? So, you have to continue practicing. However, as the practice progressed, Xia Li seemed to find something wrong, because after he entered that state, he seemed to be able to do simple thinking again, and even seemed to be able to observe. As for what to observe, Xia Li was not sure. Maybe he could observe natural energy later. Until one day, after Xiao Li approached Xia Li in this state, Xia Li suddenly opened his eyes. He looked at Xiao Li, and there was shock in his eyes, because he saw it. To be precise, this state is to sense the flow of chakra in Xiao Li's body and the naturally dissipated chakra. So, this state is similar to the white eye? Then Xia Li shook his head. Not at all. He actually just sensed the flow of chakra and simulated the appearance of the meridians in the other person's body, and the distance that the white eye can see is not comparable to Xia Li's state. However, this state should have more effects, but he didn't find it. Xia Li thought. As for Xiao Li's chakra, it's not a strange thing. Xiao Li just can't use chakra, not that he has no chakra. If there is no chakra at all, then even the 8 gates will be useless to Xiao Li. After all, Xia Li remembered that the opening of the back door of the 8 gates of ninjutsu was to release the violent chakra locked in the body. If there was no chakra, what was the point of releasing it? However, since he had already come out of that state, he would continue to practice the changes in the form of chakra. Thinking so, Xia Li began to condense the chakra in his palm and release it, and this time, Xia Li could clearly feel that even if it was released outside the body, the connection seemed to have deepened a lot. It was a bit strange. It was obviously not like this yesterday. Xia Li looked at the spherical chakra that was successfully condensed in his hand for the first time. After thinking for a while, the chakra turned into a cube again. Xia Li stared at the cube in front of him in a daze, and then continued after thinking for a while. This time it was indeed a failure, and the chakra also silently dissipated in the air. Has he really made such a big progress in one day? Xia Li, who has practiced for so long, has a good idea of his progress. Is it that the state just now strengthened his perception? Even if the chakra is released outside the body, he can clearly perceive this part of the chakra and then control them more easily, so there is such progress. Xia Li was not sure, but if that was the case, then the effect of that state was greater than he thought. This also strengthened Xia Li's determination to learn the sage mode. Now he would ensure that this state could be maintained for a longer time. One day, Xia Li was in a state of stillness. At this time, his perception was further improved. It was definitely impossible to beat the Byakugan, but it could cover most of the close-range combat. under this perception, the opponent's chakra state was completely under Xia Li's observation, and the timing of using ninjutsu would also be seen by Xia Li. This advantage was not small, unfortunately. The range that Xia Li could perceive was probably only close combat. Even if he could perceive this distance, he might not be able to react, and this distance was more likely to be physical skills, so it was not very useful at present. After a while, Xia Li still remained in this state. He suddenly realized a problem, that is, why did he notice this problem only now, when he should have noticed it before discovering Might Guy? However, he was deceived by his own thoughts, that is, this state is used to sense natural energy, so of course he would not think of using it to sense chakra. In fact, chakra is much easier to sense than natural energy, not only because of its large quantity, but also because it is the energy he has known from the beginning. So, did he miss something because of the limitations of his previous thoughts? The perception of this state is very strong, but generally only the direction in which chakra is located can be sensed. Only when it is very close can the subtle flow direction of the other party's chakra be sensed, and this range is too small, so, in this extremely small range, if he does not ask Xiao Li, how should he try to observe? The answer is self-evident, that is himself. No matter how small the range is, he must be within this range. Thinking like this, Xia Li turned his eyes to himself for the first time, and even turned his eyes directly to his body, and saw the chakra flowing in the meridians, compared to other people's chakra, which needs to be sensed and observed. Xia Li's chakra does not need to be sensed. He can directly observe it at zero distance, which is much clearer than he imagined. And this observation made Xia Li see some different places. He saw wind and thunder from it. These two attributes have always been included in his chakra, however, Xia Li has never noticed it and cannot use it. He himself knows this. Originally, he planned to consider the changes in the attributes after he has mastered the chakra control outside the body to a certain extent. He did not expect to see them clearly at this time, observe the wind part and the thunder part of the chakra, and then silently experience their flow and changes in the chakra. At this moment, Xia Li seemed to understand something. If someone carefully observes his body, they will find that a trace of electric arc is jumping on his body, and a breeze is flowing around him. For the first time, Xia Li took the initiative to open his eyes and get out of that state. He came to an open place, thinking about the power he just saw, and formed a seal in his hand that he had remembered but never used before. Even though it was the first time to use it, Xia Li had enough confidence to use it successfully, and not just use it. Wind style, big breakthrough. As the seal was completed, the ninjutsu was successfully released, but the big breakthrough, which should have been scattered and not very powerful, only had a small range at this time, and it was like an air cannon blasting in one direction, which was completely different from the traditional big breakthrough. Xia Li looked at the big breakthrough he used, and his eyes showed a sudden realization. If he followed the step-by-step seal in the scroll and controlled the flow of chakra, he could definitely use the big breakthrough, but in this case it would only be an ordinary big breakthrough, which would generally only have some effect on the mist-shadow technique, and the lethality was too dispersed, resulting in average power. Even if he didn't understand the wind, he could still form a strong wind, naturally because of the changes in the seal created and the guided chakra. But at this time Xia Li saw the wind in the chakra and understood a little about the form of the wind, so he was able to compress the wind formed by the big breakthrough and finally formed the air cannon. But Xia Li's compression force was obviously not enough at this time. Although an air cannon was formed, the power was still not high, but the experiment was perfectly successful. Then, Xia Li looked at his arm, and soon a small arc of electricity kept jumping on his arm, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. On this day, he really took a big step forward on the road of form change. And it is definitely impossible to call it sage mode by pressing a state. Since it is just a state, it should be called the state of emptiness. Xia Li thought about this state. If it is placed in the magic world, should it be meditation? Probably, maybe there is really such a possibility. However, in this state, others use it to sense natural energy, but Xia Li uses it to observe his own chakra energy, but he thinks the effect is really good. In fact, this is very useful for Xia Li. After all, when other people learn sage mode, they have long passed the stage of learning form change. Although there are definitely other uses, it is not so useful for them. It is better to learn Sage Mode quickly, but Xia Li's current configuration is too low. For Xia Li, this state is like a low-configuration body suddenly learning a high-level state, which naturally has a driving effect on other low-configuration bodies. Chapter 22 The Secret Art of Thunder Escape. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Chapter 22 The Secret Technique of Lightning Escape. At this time, Xia Li felt the numbness on his body, feeling a little comfortable. He also knew that this was the effect of the art just now, which made him sigh. Sure enough, the bodies in this world are not ordinary compared to the original world. After all, the kind of body just now would not feel comfortable in the original world. It would be better if it was not electrocuted. However, Xia Li fell into thinking about the Thunder Attribute Chakra, its shape changes, and its strengthening of the body. If you think of Thunder Attribute Chakra to strengthen the body, you have to think of Kyomogakure. Their secret technique of Thunder Escape Chakra mode is very outstanding, but unfortunately, their secret technique does not exist in Konoha. Of course, Xia Li also believed that Konoha and even all the ninja villages were developing similar lightning escape secret techniques. After all, the performance of Kyomogakure's secret technique was really eye-catching, and the principle was not difficult, but the fact that the principle is not difficult does not mean that it is easy to develop, especially the secret technique of Thunder Escape, which can leave damage to the body if you are not careful. Xia Li even believed that a ninjutsu with similar effects had been developed in the darkness of Konoha, but the side effects were estimated to be very serious, and the effect was far inferior to Kyomogakure's secret technique, so it had been left there without any ninja to use it. Of course, it is more important to understand the working principle during the development process so that you can better deal with the Kyomogakure ninja later, but for now, basically all the development results of ninja villages are not very good. Think about it. After all, it is the secret technique that Kyomogakure, a ninja village, uses to gain a foothold, so naturally it will not be easily researched. Xia Li only thought about Yunin's Thunder Escape Chakra mode. Although he was a little greedy, he also knew that there was a high probability that he would not be able to obtain this technique. As for temporarily strengthening the body at the next few levels, it should still be possible, just like what the two pillars did in the Chunin exam. However, the second pillar is still the protagonist after all. The treatment of the protagonist is really incomparable with the supporting role. The way the second pillar can succeed quickly is not necessarily low risk. It may not overstimulate the muscles and directly roast the body. This kind of strengthening Xia Li is needed, but Xia Li does not currently have a big need for improvement in combat power, so the strengthening method can be explored slowly, and there is no need to be so anxious. First of all, learn more knowledge about the human body from the library, so that you can stimulate it more safely and comprehensively, and the effect will be better. Xia Li sighed. He had actually read some books on the human body, but he didn't study it in depth before. Now it seems that there is one more thing. To be honest, at this moment Xia Li suddenly understood Orochimaru a little bit, and he also wanted to do research. The fastest way to obtain a secret technique similar to Thunder Release Chakra is to grab it directly, but currently few ninjas can do this. Secondly, of course, it is forbidden research like Orochimaru. Directly using living people to research will naturally speed up a lot. It would be better if those Kyomogakure ninjas who can use the Thunder Chakra mode can be captured alive, even if it is dead. After all, even if the body dies, the secrets of the opponent's body will not dissipate too quickly. Study the opponent's body strengthened by secret techniques. If there are more samples, you can also deduce the opponent's secret techniques. Even some ninjutsu can be deduced. After all, every ninja will have their usual chakra pathways when using ninjutsu. It is possible to deduce it by studying these pathways, but the problem is that a ninja knows too many ninjutsu, so there are many interference items. If you want to make inferences, you not only need more samples, but you also need to know that the ninja actually used this ninjutsu during his lifetime. As for secret techniques, because the training method is different from ordinary ninjutsu, it is better to reverse it. Therefore, even the corpse of a ninja is a precious material and will be recovered by the ANBU in the village. If it cannot be recovered, it will be destroyed directly. It is impossible to leave it to other villages, but even so, it will definitely not happen overnight if you want to reverse it, not to mention that there are not so many corpses that happen to use the Thunder Chakra mode for you to experiment with. The efficiency of using ordinary living people will drop sharply later. If ordinary living people are not used, try using animals first, and the efficiency will drop sharply. In short, it is not simple. If Xia Li is given taboo methods, he is confident that he will be able to research some results before the plot begins, which may be effective but have serious side effects, but here comes the problem. There are not that many people for Xia Li to use for experiments. It is estimated that you will not be able to catch this amount even if you ask Zhen Lai. Even if you catch it, this amount will definitely cause shock. It is estimated that it will be over in a few days. It was immediately detected and sent. Besides, it's impossible for anyone to let a 6-year-old boy do an experiment. Being an experimental subject is pretty much, therefore, from the beginning, Xia Li knew that taking the path of a researcher was simply not feasible for him. The time of travel was too late, and there was no time for him to conduct research, let alone receive funding before doing so. How many years old would a kid be so stupid as to fund his research? If you want to follow the path of a researcher, you need to travel earlier in time. It is best to be at the same time as Orochimaru. In that case, the operability is relatively high. If you find something cannot be done, you can even blame it on Orochimaru. Xia Li sighed. If it were possible, scientific research would be a good path that an ordinary genius could take. Unfortunately, he couldn't take this path anyway. First, there is not enough time. Secondly, his talent in the previous life was not in scientific research, and it is unlikely that he will be good in this life. Finally, Xia Li does not want to touch too many bottom lines. At most, he can study the dead ninjas. However, even if he cannot take this path, it does not matter. Xia Li's talent in the most orthodox path is still good at present. As for the path of being a prophet, it can only be said that even if you are familiar with the plot, you need to make the people around you fools, or have enough wisdom to make others look like fools in comparison. But is it possible? Anyway, Xia Li feels that he can't do it. He doesn't have that wisdom. He should just work hard to become stronger. Xia Li sat down cross-legged, and the arc on his body jumped again. Although it is difficult to study the high-level secret technique of strengthening, can't he just use it to relieve the fatigue of his body? As the arc continued to jump, a tingling feeling slowly came from all parts of the body, which made Xia Li feel a little bit high. The more tired the place is, the stronger the tingling feeling is. When it comes to the most severely exercised part, Xia Li almost couldn't help but groan. Soon, Xia Li opened his eyes. He didn't have enough chakra. He had just used a sea-level ninjutsu, which consumed too much. However, even at this moment, Xia Li could feel that his body recovered much faster than before, and this was because he only performed the most superficial massage for safety. As his proficiency increased, Xia Li believed that the effect would get better and better. In this way, the body would recover better, and the chakra stock would increase faster. The current plan had to change again. The form change could be practiced in the state of emptiness for the time being, and then a little practice would be enough to get familiar with it. The remaining chakra would be used to massage the tired body. Xia Li's eyes flashed. The discovery of the state of emptiness and the lightning mode made him feel that his future was brighter and brighter, and he was a little bit looking forward to it. Chapter 23 Effects and Helps of Lightning Escape Form Change. You are listening at NovelsThe. Chapter 23 The Effect and Help of Thunder Escape Form Change. Whether it was the Kongming state or the Thunder Escape Massage, their subsequent effects were beyond Xia Li's expectations. The state of space and darkness is not as amazing as the first time, but the perception is still slowly increasing, and the observation of chakra energy is getting deeper and deeper, but because it has not achieved a qualitative change, it seems that there is no breakthrough. But in fact, Xia Li became more and more proficient in the form changes of wind release and thunder release. As a result, Xia Li's thunder release and wind release ninjutsu became theoretically more powerful. Unfortunately, due to the limitation of chakra amount, the several wind escape ninjutsu and thunder escape ninjutsu that Xia Li has mastered are still sea-level ninjutsu, which consume a lot of energy, and there is no need to use these ninjutsu at present. He naturally won't practice. The increase in power is just what Xia Li feels. As chakra grows later, if there is still chakra left after everything is completed, and it is enough to use sea-level ninjutsu, he will probably try to practice it. This is the benefit of peacetime. If it is a wartime, these sea-level ninjutsu are all means of saving lives. You will have to rely on the limited chakra to practice, and the efficiency will be horribly low. But in order to survive, they are also necessary. As for the lay-done massage, the effect was even more obvious. Every time after breaking away from the void state, Xia Li started to massage. The numbing feeling made him indulge in it every time. After each massage, Xia Li could even feel a slight strengthening of his body. Of course, this was also related to the low strength of his body. However, the perceptible increase in speed is still enough to make people feel terrifying, and this also makes Xia Li's chakra increase faster. Originally, Xia Li expected that his chakra would reach the average genin level only when he was in 3rd grade, but now it seems that he should be able to do so earlier. Of course, Lei Dun's massage is not a panacea. His body has its limits. If the massage lasts too long, there will be pain, and Xia Li will stop at that time. The remaining chakra is generally not enough to use sea-level ninjutsu, but it is a good choice to use it to try the form changes that were previously improved due to the state of Kongming. At this rate, Xia Li will probably be able to practice the wind release wind cutting jutsu and wind release gale wind palm, 2 relatively less expensive ninjutsu, by the next semester. In fact, Xia Li had an idea after practicing the void state and thunder escape massage many times. These two can be done together. Unfortunately, at present, he can only observe in the void state. If he tries to actively control it, he will immediately leave the void state, but Xia Li also believes that this will happen sooner or later. At that time, Lei Dun massage and Kongming state almost had the opportunity to be combined. As for now, it is better to practice separately. Let's first try to successfully reverse the order of practicing the Kongming state and the thunder massage. Metkai was shocked when he discovered Xia Li's improvement once in a while. He had already made arrangements based on Xia Li's body and improvement speed. However, when I came here this time, I found that Xia Li's improvement was much faster than expected. What's going on? Xia Li didn't hide it from Metkai. After all, he wanted Metkai to help determine the new exercise plan, including the improvement in Lei Dun massage. After listening to Xia Li's words, Metkai looked at Xia Li in a daze. Even though he had no talent for ninjutsu, he knew that it was not easy to do this. Maybe Xia Li didn't feel the difficulty during the massage, but Metkai was still a jounin after all, and he had actually seen many things. Too many ninjas cannot even change their form and can only use it step by step according to the seals of ninjutsu, let alone freely control the chakra after the form change. At this moment, Metkai also understood that the other party was different from him and Xiao Li. And that the other party was definitely a genius in ninjutsu. After realizing this, Metkai couldn't help but shed tears and gave Xiao Li a thumbs up. It was so touching that he worked so hard despite having such a talent. Metkai felt that he was also inspired to let everyone know that the youth of Konoha's blue beast has no limits. Xia Li looked at Metkai, who was crying in front of him, and was speechless. Although he had seen it in the original novel, it still felt strange to see it in reality. After being moved, Metkai still dutifully helped Xia Li rearrange her exercise plan, and then became a little nervous. Is there anything else? Master Kai. Xia Li was speechless when she saw Metkai like this. Didn't anyone tell him that his expression was too obvious and that he couldn't hide his thoughts at all? Well, can you use this Lei Dun massage for Xiao Li? Metkai scratched his head and felt a little embarrassed, but seeing Xia Li's improvement, he thought of Xiao Li again. After his inquiring, Xiao Li seemed to be different from him. The other party really couldn't use ninjutsu, rather than it was difficult to use ninjutsu. Although Xiao Li also had chakra in his body, Xiao Li couldn't mobilize it at all. He couldn't get up, let alone use ninjutsu. Therefore, perhaps the only physical skills that Xiao Li could use were physical skills. Seeing Xiao Li's hard work, Metkai couldn't bear to tell him about this. Sure. Xia Li also agreed directly. He had a good impression of Xiao Li. Secondly, it was Might Guy's request. He also got Might Guy's help. Finally, his remaining chakra was originally used to try the form change of the improvement in the state of emptiness. Now he can only try it once, and the subsequent practice can be put aside. Trying it once is actually enough. As for whether the remaining chakra after the attempt can still help Xiao Li massage, Xia Li said that there is no way. He must first ensure that his plan is completed successfully, and the remaining chakra after completion will be used to help others. This is the place that Xia Li will not change and does not want to change, unless the person he is asked to help is Sinai. However, what Xia Li did not expect was that the accident still happened. When Xia Li said that he helped the other party massage, Xiao Li also expressed his gratitude. Although Xia Li said that it was Might Guy's request, Xiao Li still thanked him. Xiao Li, you have to remember that this massage is not a joke. Lightning chakra is a very violent chakra, so if you feel pain during the process, stop immediately. Otherwise, it will not only not help you, but also hurt your body. Xia Li said solemnly. I know. Xiao Li nodded solemnly after hearing it. After Xiao Li was ready, Xia Li began his massage, but after a while, even before Xia Li's massage went deep, Xiao Li stopped because of pain. This time is too short, right? It was so short that Xia Li didn't expect it at all. Is this massage effective? Yes, but according to Xia Li's usual experience, the effect is very little. Xia Li frowned and looked at Xiao Li. What's going on? He didn't think that Xiao Li's body was not strong enough. Chapter 24 Reasons and Xiao Li's Decision. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Chapter 24 Reasons and Xiao Li's Decision. Xia Li frowned, looking at Xiao Li who was screaming in pain, thinking about the reasons. To help Xiao Li with massage, the lightning chakra that needs to be controlled needs to be released, so his control over it will be greatly reduced, but with the previous improvement of the empty state, it is not so bad. Taking himself as a blueprint, Xiao Li's effect should not be so superficial. So, is there any difference between his body and Xiao Li's? Xiao Li's body strength is definitely far greater than his, there is no doubt about this, so it is a problem of chakra. Because it is his chakra, he can't help Xiao Li. No, it shouldn't be like this. His lightning chakra didn't even enter Xiao Li's body, and the other party was already screaming in pain, so, what's going on? Xia Li was thinking. It turned out that his knowledge was too shallow, and he couldn't figure it out. In addition to these, what is the difference between him and Xiao Li? Of course, the bloodline is different, but they are all ordinary people, and no one will look down on anyone. However, there is another point that Xiao Li cannot use chakra, but this should not be the case. His massage has nothing to do with whether the other party can use chakra or not. Chakra cooperation is not required during the massage process. Xia Li thought about it, and the arc on his body was jumping again. This kind of jumping basically didn't feel anything to Xia Li. He wanted to try it again to see why, but Xiao Li couldn't help but step back a few steps after seeing it. It was an instinctive retreat from lightning. After seeing Xiao Li's actions, Xia Li suddenly paused, then his eyes lit up and said, Xiao Li, come over and touch it, and then tell me how it feels. Although Xiao Li felt a little numb when he looked at the arc on Xia Li's body, he believed that the other party would not hurt him, so he just resisted and touched it. Then, Xiao Li quickly withdrew his hand. How is it? What does it feel like? Xia Li asked. It hurts a little. Xiao Li replied. Xiao Li's answer made Xia Li determine that it was the problem of the other party's chakra attribute, because the lightning in Xia Li's chakra attribute is innate. Even the first time, he felt tingling and even a little comfortable, but Xiao Li's body strength is stronger than Xia Li's, and he still felt pain when he touched them. This should be because Xiao Li's attribute does not have lightning, so Xiao Li's resistance or affinity to lightning cannot be compared with Xia Li. This should be the reason, Xia Li thought, although he could not be completely sure, but it is likely to be the case. It doesn't matter, it should be because I can't use chakra, it has nothing to do with Xia Li. Xiao Li was a little disappointed, but seeing Xia Li who was thinking all the time, he thought that the other party was blaming himself and couldn't help but take the initiative to say. No, it's still my fault. Xia Li said after taking a deep breath. What does this have to do with Xia Li? It's obviously me. Xiao Li wanted to say something. It's my problem, the control of chakra is not fine enough. Xia Li said, if his control is fine enough, then he can use more subtle lightning chakra to help Xiao Li. Although the effect in this way may not be comparable to his own, it must be better than the current situation. In the final analysis, it is still his lack of control over the external chakra. Xia Li thought about it and said, let's do this. I will continue to help you every day in the future. Although the effect is small, it is also effective, and I can also exercise the control of chakra through this. Xiao Li looked at Xia Li in a daze after hearing this. Finally, with tears in his eyes, he hugged Xia Li and kept thanking him. There is no need to thank you so much. Didn't I say that I can also exercise through this? Xia Li was a little helpless. He felt that he even had a way to test the control of chakra, which was quite profitable. He wanted to break free but was not as strong as Xiao Li. He was even more helpless when he couldn't break free. Unfortunately, Xiao Li didn't believe Xia Li's words. Even if he could exercise, he didn't necessarily need to find him. Therefore, Xiao Li didn't know what he should do to repay the other party's help. Xia Li saw Xiao Li like this and understood that the other party probably didn't listen. He didn't have any psychological pressure. Even if the help was small, it wouldn't be considered help. However, Xia Li felt the remaining chakra and was a little speechless. He thought it was not enough to give Xiao Li a lightning massage, but it was not used up yet. So he should go back early today. Xiao Li, I'm going home first, you should go back early too. Xia Li said. Okay, I'll go back after training for a while. Xiao Li said seriously. Xia Li knew that although the other party said this, it was estimated that he would have to train for a long time, but he couldn't say anything, so he left directly. After a while, Xiao Li's side was almost finished, and at this time, Might Guy happened to come here after finishing his work and met Xiao Li. Oh, is today's training over? Might Guy looked at the sky and was very satisfied with Xiao Li's efforts. Yes, Lord Kai. Xiao Li's eyes lit up when he saw Might Guy. From Xia Li's mouth, he also knew that this person who relied on physical skills to become a senior ninja was simply his future goal. Well, Xia Li's massage should have been tried. Is it useful? Might Guy also asked with some expectation. After hearing this, Xiao Li's expression suddenly darkened. He was really too weak and he could not afford the help from Lord Kai and Xia Li. Xiao Li told Met Kai what had just happened in a low tone. So that's it. Met Kai also understood. It's not surprising if you think about it carefully. If it's really that simple, then not all the ninjas in Lei Dun can use this method. If it doesn't work, then work harder. If the shortcut doesn't work, then use our youth and hard work to make up for it. I believe you can do it. Mat Kai said, showing his big white teeth, as if they were shining. Yes, Lord Kai. Xiao Li's eyes also burst out with flames, and Met Kai saw the flames in Xiao Li's eyes also ignite. Master Kai, I have something to ask you. Xiao Li said loudly at this time. Say it. Met Kai replied loudly. It was obviously just an ordinary conversation, but it seemed so passionate. If Xia Li was here, he would be so shocked that he couldn't stand it. I want to help Xia Li, but I don't know what I should do to help him. I want to ask Master Kai what should I do. Suddenly, Met Kai fell silent, thinking of Xia Li. Even though he didn't pay much attention to affairs, he also understood Xia Li's terror. In his opinion, his terrifying talent was almost the same as Kakashi's, and he also worked much harder than Kakashi. It was too difficult to surpass him. However, nothing is impossible for youth. Are you ready? Met Kai took a deep breath and asked. Ready. Even so, will it harm my body? Met Kai continued to ask. Even if it hurts my body. Then, let's continue training. Met Kai looked at Xiao Li as if he saw himself. If he wants to catch up with those geniuses in terms of physical skills, he can only work hard, and force his body. Only in this way can he catch up with those geniuses. It's just possible to surpass those geniuses. And this is also Xiao Li's only way out and opportunity. Oh! Xiao Li shouted loudly, as if strength came out of his body again. Naturally, Xia Li, who has returned home, will not know all this. Chapter 25 Midterm Examination. You are listening at NovelsThe. Mom, I'm back. Xia Li pushed open the door and shouted. You're back. I'm tired and sweaty again. Go take a shower first. Mom has some questions to ask you. Sinai had already prepared Xia Li's clothes. She looked at Xia Li's sweaty body and said, Sinai was used to Xia Li coming back at this time every day, and every time he came back, he looked soaked in sweat. Oh, okay. Xia Li also took the clean clothes and walked towards the bathroom. Soon, Xia Li came out with a dry towel rubbing his wet short hair. Sinai looked at his son and his eyes lit up. Although he looked ordinary at ordinary times, it was actually because of his dressing. Now he looked like a handsome guy when he grew up, at least much more handsome than his father. What's the matter? Xia Li looked at his mother. The other party had said before that she had something to ask him, but he stood here for a while and said nothing. After Sinai came back to her senses, she said with a smile, didn't we have a midterm exam before? Mom wants to ask about the results of the exam. As for the exam, it should be pretty good. Xia Li suddenly realized that there is no parent who doesn't care about their children's grades. Even in the world of Naruto, it is inevitable. However, when it comes to the midterm exam, in fact, the first-year exam is really nothing, just some basic knowledge and basic physical exams. Xia Li estimated that he should have full marks. Not bad. That's good. Sinai didn't ask too clearly, and she didn't expect that Xia Li's good score would be full marks. The next day, when Iruka announced the results, Xia Li's score was full marks as expected. Moreover, because Xia Li raised the scoring standard for physical strength a bit high, in comparison, other people's physical scores were really miserable. Congratulations, Xia Li, you should keep working hard in the future. After Iruka handed the paper to Xia Li, he walked around and said, everyone should learn more from Xia Li in the future. Learn from him sleeping while sitting, that the people below started to discuss. Many people were dissatisfied with Xia Li's results. After all, Xia Li's performance in school was too transparent. In addition to the fact that he was famous for sleeping while sitting, Uchiha Sasuke also stared at Xia Li at this time, gritting his teeth. He didn't hate the other party's excellence, but blamed himself for being so far behind. How could he catch up with his brother's footsteps in this way? More importantly, he would not get his brother's praise in this way. Damn it. Moreover, it's not just the guy who was sleeping while sitting. The little transparent guy with cherry-colored hair over there actually surpassed him. As an excellent member of the Uchiha clan, and the son of the clan leader, with a very excellent brother, is he so bad? Uchiha Sasuke continued to grit his teeth. In fact, the culprit for Sakura's overall score exceeding Sasuke's was Xia Li. His PE score standard was too high, which resulted in Sasuke's PE score being much higher than Sakura's, but the score did not widen. On the contrary, Sakura's theoretical knowledge was much higher than Sasuke's, so this scene appeared. Yamanaka Ino was curiously looking at Xia Li, who had obviously won the first place but still looked indifferent. Although she and the other party would greet each other every day, in fact, that was all. Xia Li had never taken the initiative to find Yamanaka Ino, and Yamanaka Ino gradually stopped paying attention to Xia Li, but this assessment made Ino look at him with some new eyes. She had never thought that Xia Li, who had always been unknown and transparent, was so outstanding. Ino listened to the discussions around her. Although some of them were dissatisfied, there were also many exclamations. After all, Xia Li scored full marks and pulled the second place by a lot of points, which was really amazing. At this moment, although in the eyes of most girls, Xia Li was still not as handsome as Sasuke, he seemed to be closer to him invisibly. Huh, Xia Li, you are so awesome. Naruto was much more direct, looking at Xia Li who was walking back, and shouted directly. Naruto. We are in class now, don't make loud noises. And Xia Li is awesome, not you, your theoretical knowledge is at the bottom. Irika couldn't help but roar after hearing this. Didn't he see that others only discussed in a low voice even when they were discussing, so loudly, really didn't take him, the teacher, seriously. After hearing this, Naruto couldn't help scratching his head, looked at his score, and was a little frustrated. Xia Li looked at Naruto's score, how to say, Naruto's sport still pulled a lot of points, so he was not at the bottom. If he taught ninjutsu later, ninjutsu accounted for the highest proportion, then if Naruto was still at this level, he would really be the last one. Come on, Naruto, I believe you can do it. Xia Li thought about it and encouraged. Hehe, I also think I can do it, after all, I am the man who will become Hokage. Naruto laughed happily after hearing this. It's so troublesome. Shikamaru was lying on the side, but was awakened by Naruto's voice. He looked over here with a headache, and couldn't help but complain after hearing Naruto's words. Hey, you're not much better than me. You just barely passed. Naruto glared at Shikamaru. Although Xia Li had said that before, he still felt a little uncomfortable. Shikamaru yawned, looked at Xia Li, and saw that many people around him were looking at Xia Li. He couldn't help but sigh that the first place was indeed troublesome. However, he controlled the theoretical knowledge by himself, but the physical education, Shikamaru almost failed, and the culprit was the guy in front of him. It was really a headache. The troublesome people increased again, and they were right next to him. This was still in class. If it was after class, Shikamaru couldn't imagine it. Sure enough, when the get out of class was over, the empty place on Xia Li's side was now crowded. After all, although Xia Li was not as handsome as Sasuke, he was also a handsome guy above the standard, and he was so outstanding. Naruto, who was squeezed out, couldn't help but be a little dumbfounded. What should he do? As for Shikamaru next to him, he had already expected this scene, so he left his seat directly after class. Seeing Naruto being squeezed out, he couldn't help but be glad of his decision. Ah, you were squeezed out too. Naruto pointed at Shikamaru and said. I didn't. Shikamaru rolled his eyes. Huh, don't deny it. I didn't expect Xia Li to be so popular. Naruto looked at Shikamaru and felt that he was a lot more pleasing to the eye. It's so troublesome. Should I change my position? Shikamaru was thinking while watching this scene. As for Xia Li, who was surrounded, it was the first time he encountered such a situation in his previous life or this life. He was a little overwhelmed at first, but later he felt that it was really troublesome. He frowned and thought that Sasuke in the original book seemed to treat these people as if they didn't exist. He could learn from them, so, Xia Li ignored everyone and looked at the book in his hand as if no one was around. Suddenly, Xia Li's ears became quiet. Did they finally leave? Xia Li looked up and saw that the surroundings were still crowded, but the one standing in front of him at this time was Uchiha Sasuke, and the people around him also stopped making noise after seeing this scene, right? The collision between the most handsome Sasuke and the handsome academic bully, they were all a little looking forward to it at this time. P.S. I finally signed the contract successfully. It was quite troublesome. The main reason was that I used a family number, and the owner of the mobile phone number was not me, so I couldn't sign the electronic version. I didn't want to apply for a card that I would never use, and it would be a waste to maintain the card, so I signed the paper version. Today, the status has finally changed. Then, it's the arrangement of updates. I originally wanted to update twice a week, but I have to go to work, and I can't type fast, so I will update 3 times in 2 days. Today, 2 updates, tomorrow, 1 update, the day after tomorrow, 2 updates, and so on. I will update twice after it is put on the shelves. The update time is fixed. The first chapter is at 9:30 in the morning, and the second chapter is at 8:30 in the evening. Also, please collect and vote. By the way, thank Boss C for sending the first monthly ticket for this book. Thank you. The above. Chapter 26 Uchiha. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Excuse me, what can I do for you? Uchiha-san. Xia Li looked up at Sasuke, who was standing in front of him with a cool expression. He didn't feel offended, and even felt that the little guy in front of him was quite cute. As for the legendary competition, Xia Li really couldn't get interested in these kids. Although personality will be affected by the environment, it won't make him behave like a child. Sasuke stared at Xia Li, with unwillingness in his dark eyes, and finally said only one sentence, next time I will definitely surpass you. After that, Sasuke left without looking back and returned to his seat. Xia Li was stunned, and then couldn't help but smile. Sure enough, even in the world of Naruto, children are still children. This serious expression and cool look are really cute. Xia Li wanted to take a camera to record all of this, and wait until they grow up to show them, and it is estimated that he can make a lot of money. However, Sasuke's declaration will not affect Xia Li. He is not so easy to be surpassed. Although the opponent is also one of the cheaters, it is obvious that the opponent's cheats have not yet been paid. Moreover, Xia Li has a good impression of Uchiha Sasuke. He is hardworking and motivated. Although he has the pride of the Uchiha clan, the words just now are driven by his self-esteem, but in fact, Sasuke's pride is okay. After all, compared with other Uchiha, Sasuke's is completely child's play, and even quite good. After all, Sasuke will not hate others for surpassing him, and will not secretly target others because of his identity. It is just this declaration of hard work that makes people unable to dislike it. However, Xia Li remembers that he hated Uchiha Sasuke when he was a child in his previous life. After all, this person seemed arrogant and bad to Naruto in his opinion. At that time, he simply disliked him as long as he felt that the other party was not good to Naruto, not to mention that this guy shouted revenge every day. Now Xia Li thinks that he was really innocent at that time. When he looked back after growing up, he no longer hated Sasuke. Although Uchiha Sasuke was arrogant, he was not arrogant. Moreover, his efforts and talents were real. More importantly, compared with other Uchiha, Sasuke was really good. As for the relationship between Sasuke and Naruto, it was not good only on the surface. In fact, those who understand will understand. Finally, Sasuke has been thinking about revenge. Isn't this normal? All the people in the clan were killed, and he was not allowed to think about revenge. If Xia Li was Sasuke, he would never forgive Konoha. Would Danzo's death be the end? Wishful thinking. If Sasuke still looked indifferent after facing the disaster of extermination, then he would be a real scum, an irredeemable ungrateful person. What's more, even under such conditions, Sasuke has not grown crooked, but just said that he is an avenger whenever he has the chance. Compared with his experience, Xia Li felt that he was also affected by the legendary chakra. As for Sasuke's elder brother, Uchiha Itachi, he is the best in the world in Sharingan illusion, but Xia Li really couldn't understand him. It was right to want to ease the conflict between the family and the village, but what was the operation of turning around and slaughtering the family after failing to ease it? Xia Li couldn't understand, and didn't want to understand. He only knew that if someone from Konoha dared to touch Sinai in the future, no matter who the other party was, whether it was a senior official or an elder of Konoha, if the strength was not enough, he would be patient first. Once the strength reached the standard, he could overturn him with the village. At that time, no one could stop him, and this idea actually restricted Xia Li in turn, because Sinai lived well in Konoha, and the village treated Sinai well. He had a relatively easy job with a decent salary, and there were some ninja subsidies. Although they were all small favors, they did allow Sinai to pull Xia Li up, and this was enough for Sinai. This also prevented Xia Li from betraying the village. He knew that there were many dark things in the village, some of which were even unbearable for him to see, but what does all this have to do with him? Xia Li is not a saint who wants to care about all the injustices in the world. He is just an ordinary person who wants to become stronger and protect himself and the people he cares about. What's more, the darkness contained in Konoha is terrible. Are other villages clean? It's just a matter of one person laughing at another. In this world, where there are ninjas, there is no clean place. As for those things that he can't stand, if he has the ability, he can try to change them. If he doesn't have the ability, then don't affect him and the people he cares about. Xia Li knew from the beginning that he was a selfish person, but he didn't want to change anything, that's all. Therefore, Xia Li absolutely couldn't understand Uchiha Itachi's approach. He could only say that maybe the brain circuits of people in the Naruto world have their own thinking patterns. What does this have to do with Xia Li? Let Sasuke and Konoha's high-level officials worry about the other party's affairs. It has nothing to do with him. However, Xia Li thought about the time, looked at Sasuke over there, and thought about what happened in the village. He didn't pay much attention to what happened in the village, but it seemed that the relationship between the village and the Uchiha was getting more tense. So, is it almost time for the Uchiha clan to be exterminated? Xia Li was thinking. He only knew that this happened, but he didn't know when it would happen. At present, it should be soon. Regarding the night of the Uchiha clan extermination, Xia Li had no idea of changing his mind, and he didn't want to get involved. He was just a small fry now. Would he go there to die? In this case, Xia Li thought about Sinai's general trajectory of action, and he would basically have no intersection with Uchiha, so he felt relieved. Then he thought about Uchiha's affairs. In the end, Xia Li still felt that there was no hope, so he should die. It was a pity for Uchiha Fugaku, the relatively dovish clan leader. If the other party hadn't met Danzo, perhaps the relationship between Uchiha and the village could be eased a little. Even if it was still tense, it shouldn't be forced to rebel. Unfortunately, that was Danzo. As long as Danzo was still there, it was basically a fantasy for Uchiha to reconcile with the village. Even easing the relationship would be difficult. However, maybe it was Uchiha Shirsue's Mangekyo that made the other party confused for a while and decided to rebel. But Xia Li felt that it shouldn't be that way. After all, the other party was the head of a clan. Could he really think that a Mangekyo could successfully fight against the village? And it was the strongest village, so, the other party wanted to rebel because they were forced into a desperate situation and saw Shirsue's Mangekyo, so they decided to fight. Then they were betrayed by two traitors, and even exterminated by an unfilial son. Really, it was miserable. Anyway, Xia Li felt that he was lucky not to be reincarnated into Uchiha. Otherwise he would have considered how to escape from Konoha first. He didn't think of any way to change Uchiha and Konoha. First, he encouraged Shirsue to kill Danzo secretly. Forget it, forget it. Thinking too much will hurt brain cells. It's all speculation, and there is no way to prove it. It's useless to think about it. Chapter 27 Rewards. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. In reality, Xia Li's indifference and apathy also made the people around him disperse. After all, there was no need to keep trying to please others. However, if Xia Li could always maintain the first place, it would be difficult for them to disperse. After everyone had left, Yamanaka Ino had the opportunity to come to Xia Li and greeted him with some trepidation. Ino didn't know why she was so trepidatious. She had greeted Xia Li before, but when she saw that Xia Li ignored everyone, she felt that he might not pay attention to her either. Xia Li, you've become so popular. Xia Li turned around and saw that it was Ino, and a helpless expression appeared on his face. He said, I don't want to be so popular. It's annoying. I just want to read quietly. Suddenly, seeing that Xia Li's attitude was the same as usual, Ino breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. This can't be helped. After all, Xia Li is much better than the second place. Xia Li also sighed, it's so troublesome. So Xia Li deliberately ignored others. Suddenly Ino seemed to realize something. Xia Li looked around and nodded after finding that no one was there. Although he didn't pay much attention to people, it would offend people if he said it out and was heard. Just pretend to be aloof and offend people. Don't worry, I will keep it a secret for you. After seeing Xia Li's appearance, Ino couldn't help but laugh out loud and said. Well, it will be troublesome if others hear it. Xia Li didn't say anything more. However, Ino left with satisfaction. Not only did they share the secret, but she also felt that she was special. After all, Xia Li ignored everyone but her. Ino could feel the surprised eyes of those people who saw that she could talk to Xia Li on an equal footing, and she felt a little proud. How could Xia Li think so much? After pretending to be cool and driving away others, he couldn't pretend to be cool in front of people he knew. If Ino knew, she would probably complain that you are cold to begin with, so you don't have to pretend. Those scary guys finally left. At this time, Naruto finally returned to his seat, wiped off the non-existent cold sweat and complained, "I can't even get back to my own seat. It's really scary." Xia Li agreed after thinking about it. Although he had seen this scene in the original book and felt exaggerated at the time, he felt very tired when he faced this scene now. "It's all your fault." At this time, Shikamaru also walked to the other side, staring at Xia Li with a pair of dead fish eyes, and was very dissatisfied with the guy who forced him to leave his seat. "Then I can't do anything about it. I can't just let him go on purpose, can I?" Xia Li glanced at Shikamaru. "Well, that's true." Shikamaru scratched his head, not knowing what to say. Did he let him go on theoretical knowledge? However, the other party couldn't tell what he said. Shikamaru looked at Xia Li and found that his attention had already returned to the book. He couldn't help but sigh that this person deserved the first place. The day ended quickly. Xia Li exercised as usual, practiced the empty state and completed the last lightning massage. He didn't break this habit because of the first place this time. After all, with Xia Li's familiarity with his previous life, as long as he broke it once, he would have all kinds of reasons to be lazy later, so he couldn't start this. Then, it was the familiar plot of yesterday, but this time Xia Li knew that Shinai wanted to ask about the results. Xia Li didn't mean to be a riddler. After handing the score sheet to Shinai, he took the clean clothes and towel and walked to the bathroom. Shinai looked at the score sheet in her hand, the full score and the first place, and was a little dazed. How could her son's grades be so good if he went out to play every day? It's okay for sports, after all. Xia Li played and sweated every day before coming back, and he must have been physically fit during this period. But how come this theoretical score is also the first? Is her son's talent so good? Shinai fell into deep thought, thinking about Xia Li, who has been sensible since childhood. It seems that there is nothing wrong with him being a genius. Although she has been more tired recently, she feels more motivated when she sees Xia Li's results. Later, she can show off her son to her colleagues at work, and Shinai smiled as she thought about it. In fact, the more tired pot is still on Xia Li's head. His thunder escape massage can indeed help him recover better, and better recovery also requires energy. Where does this energy come from? Of course, it is not energy that is born out of thin air, but obtained from food, so Xia Li's appetite has increased dramatically recently. However, in Shinai's opinion, this should be the result of serious training at school. If her salary is only used to maintain her livelihood, although other aspects will be more tight, it can still be maintained. If it really doesn't work, then ask colleagues to borrow some first. It shouldn't be difficult. After all, Xia Li's grades are here, and he will definitely have a bright future. It's not difficult to pay back this little money. After Xia Li came out of the bathroom, Shinai hugged Xia Li and rubbed his wet hair. "Son, you are really great. Tell me, what reward do you want this time? Can it be ninjutsu?" Xia Li thought for a while and asked. Suddenly, the smile on Shinai's face froze. Her husband's inheritance was used up when exchanging for shadow clones, so there was no extra money left to exchange for other ninjutsu. She could only shake her head. Then there is no more. Xia Li thought about it and said. He also knew the situation at home. He had almost eaten all the food. What else did he want? Fortunately, Shinai worked in a barbecue restaurant and the meat obtained from the restaurant was relatively cheap, otherwise it would not be enough for Xia Li to eat. Is there nothing else you want? Shinai had a headache. No more. Xia Li confirmed. Instead of wasting money on other things, it would be better to buy more food. As for shuriken and kunai, he could use stones to practice shuriken for the time being. As for kunai, stones were too fragile and not very good, but Xia Li also had a goal. According to the custom of previous years, the first place in the final assessment of the first grade should be rewarded with a special kunai, and this special kunai, Xia Li said that he had already reserved it. Okay. Shinai nodded helplessly. Although Xia Li said that nothing else was needed, as a mother, she felt that she should still give her child a reward when he had a good grade. The weather was slowly getting colder, so she knitted a sweater. I haven't done handicrafts for a long time. I hope my handicraft skills won't decline. Sinai smiled as she thought about it. In any case, the child is so outstanding and so sensible. As a parent, how can I not be happy? Sinai looked at Xia Li carefully and nodded secretly. It was time to dress up. It was not appropriate to wear some ragged clothes like before. It would be nice to dress handsomely to attract some girls. Chapter 28 Naruto's Invitation. You are listening at NovelsThe. One day after the midterm exam, Ninja Academy, first-year class. At this time, a few days have passed since the midterm exam. What makes Xia Li relieved is that his popularity has finally returned to normal because of his personality that basically ignores others. Although there are still many people who pay attention to him, it is much better than the situation of being surrounded by people in those days. However, at this time, Xia Li looked at Naruto, who was a little shy next to him, and sighed and said, "Just say it if you have anything to say, there is no need to be shy." "Well, it's Xia Li, you can see this." Naruto scratched the back of his head and laughed. "So what's the matter?" Xia Li asked helplessly. "Well, tomorrow is a holiday, I want to invite Xia Li to my house." Naruto no longer hesitated, and said it directly, and then looked at Xia Li expectantly. If Xia Li agreed, then he would have the first guest in his house besides the third-generation old man. Xia Li was stunned for a moment. He had never expected Naruto to invite him to his home. No. Naruto looked at Xia Li, who did not answer, thinking that the other party was in a dilemma, and suddenly felt a little disappointed. "It's not impossible, but I didn't expect you to invite me suddenly," Xia Li said after coming to his senses. "Hey, then." Naruto's eyes lit up. "Well, I agreed, but you just tell me your address, I will go alone. After all, you also know what will happen with you." Xia Li did not hide his thoughts. He didn't want to be talked about by the villagers wherever he went. "Oh, okay." Naruto naturally didn't care about this detail. Besides, wasn't it the reason why he didn't approach Xia Li before coming to the ninja school? Xia Li was thinking about the guest thing. First of all, although he didn't know where Naruto lived, he was basically sure that there should be no other residents around the other party's house, so if he was just a guest, he just had to avoid the villagers' eyes and ears. As for the Umbu and the Root who secretly monitored Naruto, Xia Li had nothing to worry about now. He sat at the same table with Naruto in school, so wasn't it normal to go to his house? Moreover, if the third Hokage wanted to strengthen Naruto's bond with the village, he would be happy to see this. The only trouble was the Root. If it was before, Xia Li might have hesitated, but now he was sure that he had been noticed by the third Hokage. Even though the third Hokage was old, there was no need to worry about this. The third Hokage was not so stupid as to let Danzo reach out to the future of the village. Everything had a way to deal with it, so Xia Li naturally did not refuse. Soon, Naruto told Xia Li where he lived. Sure enough, it was not beyond Xia Li's expectations, and it was even more remote, so that Naruto would probably have to come to pick him up on the way back, otherwise it would be hard to find. Xia Li also quickly made an appointment with Naruto. After all, even if he was a guest, he couldn't waste time exercising. As for using a shadow clone to attend the appointment, Xia Li had a flash of thought, but he quickly abandoned it. After all, he felt that it was not polite to use a shadow clone when visiting, even if the other party was just a child. "Hey. Xia Li is going to visit Uzumaki classmate's house." Ino just heard their conversation nearby and couldn't help asking. "Yes, is there any problem?" Xia Li looked at Ino. "Well." Ino frowned and looked at Uzumaki Naruto. Her father told her that it was best to stay away from this person, but Ino didn't quite understand why. She thought about the other party's usual behavior, especially that she had become familiar with him recently, and felt that it seemed okay. "It should be okay," Ino said according to her feelings. "I don't know what Naruto is like in other people's mouths, but I prefer to believe my feelings. I think Naruto is a very good little family friend." Xia Li almost said the little guy, but after thinking about his age, he decided to call him a friend. Well, I know. Ino nodded ignorantly, as if she had heard some great truth. When Naruto heard this, he looked so touched that he wanted to cry. Shikamaru, who was lying on the table, moved his ears and smiled. Although that guy was troublesome, he was unexpectedly nice. Not quite understanding, Ino shook her head and decided to go back and ask her mother. However, Ino looked at Naruto, who was about to cry, and felt that he was a bit rustic. Besides, this crying look was really unsightly. Xia Li was better looking and his grades were okay. However, Naruto invited Xia Li to his home, so should she also invite Xia Li? But as a girl, it was not good to take the initiative to invite him. Ino hesitated and went to class without making a decision. Xia Li did not notice that Ino was abnormal. After all, not everyone wrote their thoughts on their faces like Naruto did. Ino did not stay for long, so it was normal that he did not notice. After school, Ino was still thinking about this matter, and then she accidentally saw a familiar figure. She couldn't help but look over, and then found that the other person seemed to be her classmate, and the second in the class, Haruno Sakura. The other person seemed a little lonely at this time. Obviously, with such good grades, is there any time when she is unhappy? Ino thought about it and walked over. Xia Li also saw this scene on the way to the training ground. After thinking about it, Ino and Sakura seemed to have become good friends because of something. Before, he was wondering why the two were completely strangers. Now it seems that the time has not come yet. At this time, Xia Li also remembered that Sakura seemed to be not very confident because of her wide forehead. Even so, her theoretical knowledge was almost full marks. After she became confident, it is estimated that her theoretical knowledge will also be full marks. In this way, Xia Li can't relax. In order to pass on the genius character to the third generation, he needs to get the first place in all projects, but it's too early to think about these things at this time. Xia Li looked at Ino and Sakura, who were already chatting over there. Although the latter two were jealous of Sasuke, in fact, their friendship has always been very good. They are a good pair of friends. Xia Li thought of Naruto again. That guy often sneaked glances at Sakura. He probably still fell in love with Sakura like in the original book. After all, Naruto at this stage had no chance to get along with others. He basically just looked at her face. Sakura was really cute. Never mind. Xia Li felt that his feelings didn't count. He felt that these little guys were all cute. What should he do? However, Xia Li looked at it from an adult's perspective, while Naruto observed from the perspective of a peer, which was not exactly the same. Although he was thinking about things, Xia Li's steps had not stopped. He still had to complete today's practice step by step, and he definitely couldn't slack off. Chapter 29 Naruto's Home. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. The next day, after completing today's plan, Xia Li walked towards the agreed place. Xia Li, this way, this way. But when Xia Li arrived at the agreed place, he saw Naruto running towards Xia Li and waving his hand. Xia Li looked at Naruto and thought about the time he arrived. Because of what he learned in his previous life, he always came a while in advance for such an appointment, but Naruto still came earlier than him, and it seemed that he didn't know how long he had been waiting. It can be imagined how much Naruto is looking forward to this time. You came so early. It's still early for the agreed time. Xia Li said. He, a little excited. Naruto scratched his head and said with a big laugh. As he said, Naruto also walked in front and led Xia Li on the way. To be honest, if there was no one to lead the way, Naruto's residence would be really hard to find. Xia Li looked at the house in front of him. It was not small. If Naruto lived alone, it could even be considered very large. This should be the residence arranged by the third generation for Naruto. As for the residence of the fourth Hokage, it is definitely impossible for Naruto to live there. After all, if Naruto lives there, and has the same bright golden hair as the fourth Hokage, even those who don't want to associate Naruto with the fourth Hokage can't help but think about the relationship between them, right? In fact, the village is hiding the relationship between the fourth Hokage and Naruto, so, this is basically impossible to be the residence of the fourth Hokage when he was alive. Soon, Naruto took Xia Li into the house, and before Xia Li walked in, he saw some traces in front of the door. Although it seemed to have been cleaned, it was roughly guessed what it was. After all, although Naruto's residence is very remote, there will definitely be someone who will find it here, and it is not surprising that they will do some unreasonable things, such as carving words and splashing paint. After entering the house, Xia Li was a little surprised to find that although Naruto's house was not clean, it was quite tidy. It must be said that it was very good for a boy or a child to be able to do this. By the way, do you have any plans for what to do next? Suddenly, Xia Li asked Naruto. Naruto blinked. Is there anything else to arrange? Xia Li sighed. He shouldn't have any expectations for Naruto. He asked, what do you usually do? Usually. Naruto thought for a while and said, I don't seem to have anything to do usually. Sometimes I go around alone, and sometimes I go to the village to play. Xia Li looked at Naruto and didn't ask any more. What to play in the village? Will anyone play with him? It probably means to do some strange things to attract other people's attention. What do you usually do at home? Xia Li continued to ask. Naruto thought for a while and shook his head, and asked in return, does Xia Li know what to play? Suddenly, Xia Li was silent. What to play? Well, I have long forgotten my childhood memories. What to play when I grow up? There are no mobile phones in this world, so Xia Li can't think of anything fun, so he can only shake his head. So Xia Li is the same as me. We are different. I don't play because I don't want to play, and you don't play because there is nothing to play. Xia Li rolled his eyes. Naruto narrowed his eyes. What's the difference? Isn't there nothing to play? Then do you have any questions in class? I can answer them. Xia Li thought about it. Since there was nothing to do, he didn't play. Anyway, he had no interest in it. It was a bit annoying that he didn't seem to bring a book. If he had known that Naruto had no plans, he would definitely bring a book to read. Ah. You still have to read books during the holidays? Naruto was a little reluctant. Don't talk nonsense. Your theoretical grades are very poor. Xia Li glanced at Naruto and said. Okay. Naruto nodded reluctantly, took out his textbook, and scratched his head and read it. Xia Li had nothing to do, so he carefully observed Naruto's room. Well, the furniture was quite complete, including a refrigerator, a washing machine, an air conditioner, etc. Xia Li was speechless every time. The technology line of Naruto was really messy, and these were definitely not something Naruto could afford, probably all arranged by the third generation. Of course, if the fourth generation's legacy was given to Naruto, then Naruto would indeed be a rich kid. In fact, the third generation certainly did not give Naruto as much as the fourth generation's legacy, but it was actually enough. Anyway, it was no problem to use it to solve the expenses. The problem was that Naruto had money but was unlikely to spend it. So many instant noodles and milk should have been sent by the third generation. The third generation should have also discovered that Naruto could not spend the coins, so it was better to send some easy-to-store food. For the rest, even if Naruto was given fresh meat, Naruto would have to know how to cook. However, in this case, although the milk is enough, the nutrition of instant noodles is indeed not enough. Naruto in the original work is indeed short in his peers. After following Jiraiya, his height grew rapidly. It is probably related to this. There is still so much chakra, which is really enviable. It's just that the milk is a bit too much. Xia Li took it out and looked at the production date. The outside was still quite new, and then when he saw the inside, he was silent. There was actually expired milk. Would the third generation be stingy enough to give Naruto expired food? The answer is no. If that were the case, Naruto would not die even if he was a Jinchuriki, but he would probably spend every day in the toilet. In fact, he did not, which means that Naruto has not drunk the expired milk. The problem probably lies with Naruto. Xia Li shouted, Naruto. What's the matter? Naruto looked up and saw Xia Li standing in front of the refrigerator with milk. Suddenly his eyes lit up and he said, "Xia Li, if you want to drink it, drink it. I have plenty here. I don't want to drink it. I just want to say that you should drink the milk from the inside in the future." "Why? Isn't that troublesome?" Naruto was a little confused. "You always drink the outermost one, right?" Xia Li asked. "Isn't that natural? But if you don't drink the inner one, it will expire," Xia Li said. "Ah." Naruto also came here, looked at the milk in Xia Li's hand, looked at the date, scratched his head, and said, "I haven't paid attention to these, but what if the outside expires after drinking the inside first?" "You keep drinking the inside, and the outside becomes the inside after drinking the inside. You drink the outside first. If you replenish it frequently, it will be difficult to drink the innermost part, so it will expire." Xia Li was a little helpless. "Can't you figure it out?" "So that's it." Naruto clapped his hands and suddenly realized, Xia Li is still smart. Xia Li couldn't help but sigh. Even if Naruto praised him, he couldn't be proud of himself. What's smart about it? It's just that the person in front of him is too stupid. I don't know which one he inherited. Whether it's the fourth generation or the fourth generation's wife, it's obviously not like this. Just know how to do it. You just read the book, right? Is there anything you don't understand? Xia Li asked. Ah. Naruto scratched his head. You don't know anything, do you? Xia Li couldn't help but roll his dead fish eyes and stare at Naruto. Naruto smiled foolishly. Xia Li had never been so speechless. In his memory, the other party's theoretical knowledge seemed to be very poor, but this was beyond his expectations. How did Xia Li feel now? Well, that was the mentality of a parent who was tutoring his child's homework, and he might be angry to death at any time. Why did I think of tutoring him in theoretical knowledge at that time? Can we go back in time? This time he will definitely not ask for trouble. Chapter 30, Beating Naruto. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Xia Li stared at the paper in front of him with lifeless eyes. What sins did he commit in his previous life? Why was he punished like this? It was something that he had said many times before, and Xia Li thought he had explained it thoroughly. However, the messy characters on the paper told him that the other party did not understand it at all. In his previous life, Xia Li did not have the opportunity to try the pain of tutoring children's homework. He did not expect that he would experience it so quickly in this life. After marking Naruto's paper, Xia Li became the lifeless look he is now, with a slight twitch at the corner of his mouth. Really, I really did not expect that Naruto's theoretical knowledge in the original book was very poor. Xia Li sighed deeply. Iruka was really amazing to be able to be Naruto's teacher for 6 years and train Naruto to become a ninja. Therefore, Naruto's later learning was completely dependent on the shadow clone. Although it was also a kind of talent, it did not work now. First of all, the third generation must be very concerned about Naruto, so Xia Li is not very good at giving the shadow clone to Naruto. Secondly, even if he gave the shadow clone to Naruto regardless of the third generation, Naruto might not be able to use it now. Naruto's chakra is definitely enough, but the problem is that the nine-tailed fox in Naruto's body is messing around, making it difficult to control the chakra. Teaching Naruto ninjutsu in the current situation is basically useless. Even if it is a dedicated external shadow clone or multiple shadow clone, the other party may not be able to learn it. It is quite strange that the other party can learn multiple shadow clone in a short time in Xia Li's eyes now. It can only be said that he is worthy of being the most unexpected ninja. Seeing Xia Li's state, Naruto scratched his head embarrassedly, feeling that he seemed to disappoint Xia Li. Xia Li put down the test paper and did not want to continue teaching Naruto theoretical knowledge. Since the other party is only suitable for physical memory, the current teaching method is no longer applicable, and it is not without a way. Naruto, where do you usually exercise? Xia Li asked. Exercise? Well, it should be okay outside. Naruto scratched his head. He didn't have a special place to exercise. Oh, then follow me. Xia Li thought about it. This place is indeed quite remote, and it is also a suitable place for exercise. Oh. Naruto nodded and followed Xia Li. In the woods, in a slightly empty place, Xia Li and Naruto stood opposite each other. Xia Li, do you really want to do this? Naruto was reluctant to attack Xia Li, but he was still asking. Naruto, don't you want to be Hokage? The prerequisite for becoming a Hokage is to become a ninja, and becoming a ninja is not that easy. Every ninja has to go through a long period of training. Xia Li stared at Naruto. Although his body had not recovered yet, it was enough to deal with Naruto now. But. There's no but. If you can't even get past me, you still want to be Hokage? Don't you want to be recognized by others? Then attack me. Don't worry about me getting hurt. Have you forgotten that I also ranked first in the school test in this area? Xia Li looked at Naruto, who was still hesitant, his eyes slightly cold, and continued. If you can't do it even in this way, then you should give up being a ninja. I don't want to be friends with someone who can't even be a ninja. The moment Xia Li finished speaking, Naruto was stunned. Although he didn't understand many things, he understood this sentence. If he didn't attack, he would lose his current friends, then, he would return to the lonely life of a person. Thinking of how he used to cry in the corner of the bed at night, his tears had already run out and he had had enough. He didn't want to go back to his previous life. No, absolutely not. Naruto gritted his teeth, his pair of blue eyes were full of determination at this time, and the next moment he rushed towards Xia Li. Xia Li looked at Naruto's movements, which were basically unsystematic, but his speed could be praised. First, test Naruto's current physical condition. Xia Li thought about it and did not take the initiative to attack, but passively defended. In order not to lose Xia Li, Naruto also launched an attack without hesitation. Although there was no system, this endurance and strength should not be underestimated. At least Xia Li was a little surprised. The speed, endurance and strength were higher than he imagined, and much higher than the test in the school. Was it because his words just now stimulated Naruto? Xia Li thought that although only a small amount of the Ninetales chakra had penetrated the seal, in this case, the opponent could still exert a stronger strength. Xia Li smacked his lips, and he was still a little envious, but in this case, Xia Li did not intend to hold back. Although Naruto had burst out with more strength than usual, he was still a child playing house in his eyes. Compared with Xiao Li, whether it was the system, strength or speed, it was far from enough. Finally, when Naruto was exhausted, Xia Li also launched an attack, and except for some important parts of Naruto, all of his targets were his attacks. Xia Li also controlled his strength a little. It was impossible for him to be unreserved. If he didn't control it, he could really beat Naruto to death. Even with this force, it was very painful for Naruto, so painful that he couldn't help crying, but Naruto still didn't fall down, because he didn't want to lose his only friend. Although he did have the idea of becoming a Hokage, didn't Naruto want to become a Hokage just to get recognition from others? If he even lost his first friend, then what was the point of becoming a Hokage? So, he must not fall down. He can still hold on. What is this physical pain compared to the cold eyes and loneliness of the past? Xia Li also looked at Naruto a little uncertainly at this time. The other party's body should have reached its limit. Why hasn't he fallen yet? In Xia Li's surprised eyes, Naruto moved, walked towards him, slowly raised his hand, and then lightly fell on him. There was no force, and no damage, just as Xia Li had judged, so he did not dodge, and let the punch fall on him. Naruto had reached his limit, and the one who could make the other party hold on until now. Xia Li's eyes flickered slightly, and he sighed, looking at Naruto in front of him, and said softly, "It's enough, Naruto. Are we still friends now?" Naruto panted and stared at Xia Li and asked. "Of course." Xia Li nodded, smiled, and said, "I just wanted to stimulate you just now. In fact, you are better than I thought, Naruto." "Well, that's of course, I am the man who wants to become Hokage." Before he finished speaking, Naruto couldn't hold on at all and fell forward. When he fell, he still had a smile on his lips. He successfully protected his friend. Xia Li caught the fallen Naruto and smiled. He felt that this willpower was stronger than his own. He didn't plan to hit him hard at first, but thinking of the other party's recovery ability, there was no need to be timid. However, he didn't expect Naruto to last so long, so, Naruto became like this. There are probably few places on his body that are good, but he didn't hurt the root. This was of course intentional by Xia Li. In this way, the passive chakra of the Nine Tails will emerge, and then in this repeated repair process, Naruto's body will also be strengthened. This is probably similar to Xia Li's lightning massage, and it is more gentle. You don't have to move yourself, but you have to be beaten up. The more you think about it, the more envious you are. In this way, Naruto should be stronger than in the original book. It would be better if he didn't need the power of the Six Paths Sage at that time. Xia Li looked at the unconscious Naruto, touched his chin, and thought it seemed possible to give it a try.